Hello, this is Tom Capshew, and you're watching my Consciousness Rising channel. This is episode 24, and today we're going to do part 2 of a series on identity, how individual identity is constructed, how it's given to us in some ways, and the next episode will talk about how we build our identities. So if you've watched episode 23, then you should have a piece of paper that you did at the beginning of that episode. If you haven't watched it, then I'd like for you to take a moment to do that. Find a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. At the top of the page, write "I am," and then put a blank there. And then underneath that, put down 5 numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, without editing and without thinking about it, finish that sentence with each of those 5 at the end of each of those 5 numbers. I am blank. I am. I am. I am. I am. The first 5 things that come to mind to you to fill in that blank. List those 5 things underneath the statement, I am. That is most likely an indication of your core identities. As I mentioned in episode 23, we all have multiple identities, some of which are accidents of birth. So we come by those identities just by the time and place of our birth. For example, I have an identity as an American because I was born in the United States. And that was an accident of birth. I could have been born any place on the planet and have a different national identity. So whatever you put down for those 5 items, those are most likely the ones that are closest to how you would identify yourself in the world. In episode 23, we talked a little bit about gender, and we talked a little bit about religion and how those identities are often given to us by the family, by the biology of how we're born, the gender, and the family we're born into with religion. So today I'd like to talk about given identity that comes through social conditioning, because we can be born into any different varying conditions and any variants of social systems, but all of those social systems have expectations of children, and they differ across cultures. For example, in the United States and in the Western countries, children are given the identity of a student fairly soon in their upbringing, say 4 or 5 years old. There's thousands, millions of kids whose parents get them excited about being a kindergartner. And with each successive stage of education, there's a change in identity over time. We go from an elementary school student to a middle school or junior high school student to a high school student to a graduate. a high school graduate. And those are the normal course of the shift in identity. We also take on identities when we take a job. We take on identities when life events happen. For example, all of the life events can be a major shift in identity. So becoming a college student or becoming a college graduate, taking on your first job, taking on the identity of a boyfriend or girlfriend with an intimate relationship. Those are all identity shifts. Marriage is a major identity shift, and sometimes that comes with some adjustment between the expectations of the role of a spouse versus the other spouse's expectations of that role. So let me give you a brief example of that. I was raised in a traditional American family. My mother did most of the cooking in the house, except for when we grilled out on the grill. And then my father was in charge. And so I grew up with a model that most of the cooking was done by the female spouse, and most of the grilling was done by the male spouse. When I got married, my spouse was very particular about the doneness of the meat, particularly steaks, that were grilled out. And we had some big fights about whether the steak was done properly, because I was in charge of grilling and she had a very high expectation about how her steak would be done. Finally, one day, we got into such a fight about the grilling that I handed her the spatula and said, "Here, you have a particular way you like to grill, you're in charge." So my identity as the griller shifted because I couldn't meet the standard that she had for how she wanted her steak done. And my identity came from my expectation of what I grew up with. From that point on, she did the grilling, I did a lot of cooking in the kitchen, and we never fought about the doneness of a steak again. So often we cling to identity expectations that we aren't even aware of. And so that was one of the expectations that we both had, that I'd be the griller, and it wasn't a reasonable expectation. And once we shifted it, then life was a lot calmer around grilling. So that's an example where we take on identities that we expect to take on. So that was a given identity. I was the griller, and I got to examine that identity and give up that identity so that both of us could be happier. So other identities that we take on early on in our lives are as siblings, as cousins, as family relations. The fascinating thing about individual identity is that every individual identity is defined by your relationship to something else. So if you are a chef, for example, your identity is both related to the place you work, so you're an employee, but it's also your relationship to food and your expertise at cooking food. So think about your 5 identities that you've listed. Every single one of those is only defined by what it is in relationship to. And so all of our given identities are defined by what they're in relation to. My identity as an American citizen is related to the ground on which I was born, the location of where I was born. That's the relationship of my individual identity as an American citizen. So those identities can change over time, and one of the beautiful things about being human is if we are intentional and pay attention to the things that we'd like to build in our lives, then we are able to build identity, which is the subject of part 3 of this series on identity. Part 1 looked at given identity. This episode is part 2, and it looks at social conditioning that defines our identities. And the next episode, episode 25, which I hope you'll join me with, talks about building identity and how we as humans can define ourselves by building our identity. So my wish for you today is to take a look at the identities that you claim that are socially conditioned, including where you were born, what your family structure looks like. Those things help define you, and if they're unsorted, as we talked about in the last episode, we've just taken those identities and run with them. Some of us have sorted those socially constructed identities and discarded some of those, and some of them we've retained. So take a look at your socially constructed identities and see how they fit with your heart song, with that essence inside of you that came from our common Creator. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you.